We're here on the network again. Once again, we are talking about the big case around the country. Trayvon Martin, who was murdered by George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman this week was recently charged with second-degree murder in Sanford, Florida for the murder of Trayvon Martin. What do you think about the charges against him? Why did it take so long, Chris?
It took a long time because, number one, they didn't want to arrest him. Okay, we have to go through that. Billy Lee and Norman Wolfinger, people like this, they just did not want to arrest.
But did the
Zimmerman.
officers, based on the tape, when you look at that tape over and over again, he was brought in, he was in cuffs, he was in the back of the car, he wasn't in the front seat, he was in the back of the car, he was in handcuffs, he was searched before they took him in there. Wasn't he in fact, based on the scene, the officers, the first responders were going to arrest him?
Yeah, technically he was arrested. Technically, he was in custody.
How did he get released?
Well, he didn't escape.
Oh,
I never heard of any manhunt for him, with the exception of the new Black Panther Party. Nobody else is searching for him. Law enforcement was not searching for him.
Okay.
Okay, but like I understand people like my columnist Eldon Maddox treats it like he was an escaped convict. Basically, he was. You know what I'm saying? But
nobody knew where he was.
Nobody knew where he was, and there seemed to be no effort to look for him. Now, things did not turn until Wolfinger stepped down. First, Billy Lee stepped down, then Wolfinger stepped down. Then a woman named Angela Corey was appointed to replace him.
Okay.
A special prosecutor out of Florida. Now, Corey is all business. She's a tough one.
Okay.
Okay. I didn't know what to think of her at first. I saw some of her records. I said, well, she has a reputation of sending Hispanic children away for very long sentences. I said to myself, okay, George Zimmerman's a child, and he's Hispanic. Send him away, okay? But it looks like after a while, after she announced that she was not going to panel a grand jury, a couple of days later, just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, she has this guy arrested. She finds this guy, arrest him, indicted him yesterday. So it looks like this guy, he's on his way to trial. I mean, he's locked up.
But what happens? But if do people understand that because charges have come down from Florida, that I think one of the most important parts is that the Justice Department announced before he was charged that they're looking into this case. Obviously, there is some misconduct that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah. The Justice Department wants to see whether or not it can be charged as a hate crime. Okay? And if it is, that's capital. You're in capital punishment territory now, buddy. All right? So that's the thing.
Also misconduct by government officials down in Florida.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, this guy should have... He was under arrest.
That's right.
He was in cuffs, okay? He tells him a story. It was self-defense, it's self-defense. But when he was brought into that area, the precinct where you can drive in, he came out with cuffs behind his back.
Right.
He was searched. That's a person under arrest.
That's right.
He was released or he escaped.
Yeah.
One or the other.
One or the other.
Now, something did not happen in the course. When you put a person in cuffs, you put him in your car, you bring him back, you search him. Obviously, he was brought in for more than just questioning.
Well, something did happen. This is what happened. This is what we're not being made known of. There's a man out there named Robert Zimmerman, former judge magistrate. That's George's father. Okay? He lives like 50 miles away, I guess. He made a drive that night to talk to Billy Lee and Wolfing. All right. Also, he didn't just talk to them and leave. All right. It's possible his son took off with him.
Okay.
All right. But sometime after that, the police did a reenactment of that crime scene at that day, that morning.
All right.
They went to that same spot and reenacted it. Along with them was possibly George Zimmerman, but they feel it's definitely sure Robert Zimmerman was there, supervising, watching the whole thing.
Okay. What
they're suspected of doing is trying to cook up a story and angle that would favor George. All right.
Why would they do this? Who? All right. Robert Zimmerman's former magistrate, but why? Why would they do this?
Beats me. Other than, I mean, if you want to use the R word, yeah, you could say taking care of your own, but who, you know,
well, we're talking about the blue line, that thin blue line of unspoken. There's certain considerations that are given to people that are in government, law enforcement, and law enforcement.
Sure.
Was that courtesy overextended?
Way overextended.
Okay.
Way overextended. There is no other way of looking at it. There's no other way of looking at it. You could just imagine. As a matter of fact, one columnist came up with some very good speculation. And he says it's possible that the subject of Robert Zimmerman first came up when George was talking to Trayvon. And he probably told him, listen, my father is a judge. I can do what I want to you. I can do whatever I feel like doing. I'm here, I'm the neighborhood watch captain, self-appointed. Okay. And you know, you look suspicious. I don't like the way you look. You're wearing a hood, like you are right now. You know, you're suspicious.
Do I look suspicious?
You always look suspicious.
I look suspicious.
That doesn't necessarily mean
I look suspicious with a suit and tie.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, we can laugh and joke about that.
Yeah. It's stereotype.
But yeah, it's stereotype because no matter, some people view us like that no matter what we wear.
Right. If I come into the store like this, people are going to, even though I'm Pat Freeman.
Right. It could be your wedding day, you could be dressed in a tuxedo.
Right.
You still look suspicious.
Suspicious.
You know, that George Zimmerman is still going to follow you if he can drive down his SUV and sees you walking down the street. Okay, he said, "Who is that guy? I never seen him here before." And he dials 911.
Okay, based on what we've heard, I have some real difficulty with this stand your ground law should be thrown out at every state in the union immediately.
Well, you know what? I don't think it's about stand your ground. I think they're using that for a cover. That was their immediate thing. Well, we let him go. It's stand your ground.
Stand your ground law.
That's not why they let him go. They let him go because of Robert Zimmerman.
Okay.
Okay.
But what I'm saying is it needs to be thrown out.
Oh, yeah. It needs to be thrown. Yeah, you're right. It does.
And you know there was a proposal being brought here by Meziarch in New York State.
Yeah.
And that's not... It's not going to go anywhere.
It's in between 16 and 24 states right now.
It needs to be thrown out of every state. It's ridiculous. And how do you justify it? Article 35 of justifiable force says that Zimmerman was way out of line.
Right. Now,
how it is in Florida, you know, I'm not as familiar then with New York State where this is being filmed. But you're talking about an unarmed young man that was armed with some iced tea and Skittles.
Right.
The most you could have brought was another brand of iced tea and some other candy.
That's right. But he
was the aggressor.
The aggressor. Yeah.
And that's the problem. The aggressor had a weapon. And he cannot claim self-defense when you're going after a young man with a loaded Glock and he has nothing. He has a right to defend himself or he might die.
That's right.
I don't care what the situation is.
Sure.
You have a gun. You're not a police officer. You don't have a right to follow him and act in a manner you were told by law enforcement not to follow him.
Right.
You are dead wrong, and he should have remained under arrest when he was brought in to that area.
Yeah. See, I think also Trayvon didn't know Zimmerman had a gun until he reached a certain point. Okay? It's possible Trayvon may have hopped on top of him okay, if witnesses are saying it's true, if he did this, he's thinking this is just a stupid guy.
Following me.
Yeah, this guy just following me. You know, after words were said or whatever the case may be, you know, we don't know who threw the first punch or whatever, even if that happened.
Right.
You know, he didn't, obviously, he didn't know this guy had a gun until he pulled it out. That gun, he concealed that gun.
Right.
Okay, being the coward that he is, okay, he couldn't beat up a guy.
So this was a concealed weapon.
Concealed weapon. He
was not dressed as any kind of officer.
No. No.
Okay.
No indication he was dressed at all.
So how could it be how could this be justified? How can this be self-defense? If
you're white and on the right, you think this is justified. That's all they need. Okay? I've seen all types of weird comments on social networks.
This is sick.
Okay.
This happened in February.
That's right.
He just got arrested in April.
Yeah. That's right.
The Justice Department needs to be down there right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There's some serious incompetence going on here.
It's possible he's just as good, because Obama, I noticed he does things very quietly. Otherwise, he'll lose votes. Okay?
Absolutely.
A whole slew of white voters out there find out he's doing this. I'm not going to vote for him.
Right.
You know, people make themselves think that Trayvon was the aggressor. Okay? They make themselves think that he's going to hop on a guy half his size and beat him to the George had to be a pretty good wimp in order to allow that to happen anyway. Okay? But, you know, not only get beat, but start the fight. All right? And I say that also because I've had guns pointed at me at least four different times in my lifetime. Okay? Right from the start. There is no fighting somebody with a gun. Now, without a gun, that's a different story. You understand what I'm saying? So take that from the standpoint of a 17-year-old kid, and plus his hands are preoccupied with holding his snacks. All right? It doesn't look good for George. I think Angela Corey gets I don't care how many what people say about it. I know there's some on the far left who are saying he should have got first-degree murder. There's some on the far right saying he should have got manslaughter, probably manslaughter 10 if there's such a thing as that.
Well, first-degree manslaughter.
Yeah.
First-degree manslaughter is murder. High degree of it's a loss of life without planned intent. That's basically what you're saying.
Right.
Second-degree murder is a loss of life without planned intent, but you meant to kill him.
Right.
I mean, they're very close in nature.
But they would
First
want
degree's
the people on the right will make up some more degrees just to get it as light as they can.
And we're depending on Florida law here.
Yeah,
you know, I'm speaking from New York, so
for her to give him second-degree murder, it really is radical.
She must have some stuff.
Yeah, that's radical. She goes against policy. She just doesn't get a black pass.
Well,
she went against policy in so many ways.
Right.
By doing that.
Now, what's going to be interesting is to see when they have the preliminary evidential hearing, is when his defense team hears that evidence, will they attempt to get a plea? And the plea might be for manslaughter. Well, now I'm saying this based on law, but keep in mind this is going to occur in Florida, so there are some differences in the law. It could be that their intent is to get him convicted and get a plea of manslaughter, one, in the first degree, but charged him with second-degree murder. That was similar to the officer Richard McKeon that murdered his girlfriend. He was charged with second-degree murder, but the conviction was manslaughter 1, and he got 20 to life. So he has to do at least 20 years.
He has to do at least 20 years. Well, see, with Zimmerman's is 25 years.
25 to life. That's
for
murder
second degree. Murder 2.
But if his now granted, his lawyer might get to the point during this process like, George, you're done.
Yeah.
This is my advice.
But
you need to instruct me
Angela ain't going to
go for a plea.
Angela not going to listen to it.
Now, if she's got hardcore evidence, which I think she does,
I think she does,
she might say there is no plea on the table.
Right.
And that could
see, the lawyer's going to go for everything, bail, all that.
Right.
he's going to get a whole bunch of no.
Right.
He's going to continue to go to court with his eyes closed.
I think the first thing he's got to do is equate the stand your ground law. He has to ask the judge to drop all charges based on the stand your ground law. The judge then has to say yes or no.
Right.
If that judge is any confidence, he throws that out right then and there.
Right.
And if the stand you're going to find out very quickly in this process where stand your ground stands in regards to this case.
Oh yeah, very true, very true.
So where do you think this is going to go at this point? Do you think that this prosecutor has looked at the evidence the way it should be and is going to do the right thing?
I think so. By what I've seen, I don't think she spent weeks, the last several weeks, just to do the things she did.
You think she dotted her I's and crossed her
T's? Yeah,
okay.
She's not going to cop out after all that work. Okay, she is going to continue. This is going to go to trial. Okay?
How do you find a jury that's impartial?
You don't.
You can't find one.
Wait. Okay, you can find a jury that's impartial
they're if you go or they're there.
No,
is there somebody in the middle?
Yes, you could go to Africa and get some bush.
Yeah, that's where you're gonna find
that's you find it.
Maybe.
Yes, maybe. But one of them might know about it. I don't know.
I don't.
Okay.
You can't. How can you find a jury of your peers? Who's his peers in this case? That's not a
well. His peers are obviously the people who are rooting for him.
You and me are disqualified. We could never be jurors in this case.
Oh no. His lawyers would have the door with no colors allowed.
Yeah. If you ask me, is he guilty? Yes.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the conviction. Period. I'm waiting to vote convicted.
And preemptory challenges. I wonder how I can even. I wondered several times.
So what happens if they can't find a jury?
Oh, they will find a jury. Because if they don't, it goes up to it's up to the judge. Right. Okay.
Is it a non-jury trial?
Yeah, you can have a non-jury trial. If the judge makes the decision, I would think that she would think against that.
I don't see how you can find anybody not affected by this case.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna tell you something.
Unless you don't have television.
I can't see why people are so obsessed with impartiality. I want somebody who hates wrong. Now,
but how
somebody who hates murder, therefore you got somebody who's partial. When you first sit down, you're partial, and you're supposed to be.
Right, we're partial.
You hate injustice, therefore you're partial. Okay, you can't. You're looking for people who are lukewarm and neutral in character.
I don't think they can find it.
Okay?
Not in this case.
And so, do you have a verdict? Well, we've been in sequester for 10 days, and we don't care. Why not? We're impartial.
Be sequestered in this case. If you were sequestered, you were on the moon with no signal back to Earth for the last few weeks.
They can put you in a room. They can put you in a hotel room with no TV and radio.
You're talking about once you're chosen. At this point, how? In the last few weeks, it's been the front lines of everything.
No. So whoever's chosen is going to get, like I said, you could go to Africa and get some bush people, or you can get some who are just completely removed because they don't have TVs or whatever.
Go to South Pole.
South Pole, North Pole.
Greenland,
no,
Iceland.
They might know the North Pole. They might know.
Or we live off the land.
Yeah. Or you had to hire somebody who can't comprehend it like a 3-year-old kid.
Wahoos. I don't know what you're going to do.
Whatever,
you have to have no form of outward communication is the only way you can find a person who has not drawn some form of hypothesis from this case.
There are Aborigines who know about this case.
Yes.
They are.
This is social networks and the internet, this is a worldwide case. Mm-hmm. And the world is watching to see if the American system of justice can work for a change. It has worked sometimes, but not all the time.
Right. And
a lot of times, in the most part of our history in this country, it has failed African Americans.
Right.
Will it work this time? Will it protect an unarmed 17-year-old male that was just coming home from the store with a bag of Skittles and some iced tea, who was presumed to be a criminal by a person who was overzealous as a neighborhood watchman, armed with a firearm.
With a record, with a record of violence.
Record of violence.
See, they're trying to nitpick Trayvon, okay? They had some guys in the neo-Nazis or something hacked Trayvon's Twitter account. You know what they found? Most of what he talked about was what colleges what colleges he had.
It's a decent young man trying to make it.
Yes. He's telling his friends, okay, you know, I got a letter from so-and-so, I got a letter from such this school, I might go to this school. That's it. He was excited about getting ready to go to college.
This is a international tragedy. They can call it a national tragedy, they can call it a Florida tragedy, they can call it a local Florida tragedy, but it's an international tragedy of the presumption of how one looks based on color, clothing, and your lack of understanding of cultural differences. And you used it against someone and took an innocent life.
Yes, that's right. Tell me something.
Yes.
Here's the thing. A lot of white people, white conservatives, Republicans, whatever, they felt threatened by Obama's statement.
I don't know why.
He says, Trayvon, if I had a son, he would look like Trayvon. Perfectly understand. If you look at Obama and Michelle, it's perfectly understandable.
They kind of look alike.
They kind of look alike. Now,
and if they had a son 17 years old, chances are he'd have on a hoodie, and he would be walking around with his sneakers.
With about 5 Secret Service agents.
And I ask young people every day why they have their pants drooping, and they do it. And they like hip hop music, and I like some hip hop music.
I've asked a couple of brothers up there, young brothers on the street, and I give them, I said, you know where it comes from, right? They know the whole story.
Right.
Prison. I said, why are you doing this? You know what they say? A couple of last two, I asked that. They says, well, I forgot to bring my belt. Or something like that. So they know this is too big of a fad, and it's been going on for 20 years. Pat Sankey has been around for 20 years now. Okay, I got nothing against hoodie. Hoodie is just a hood. All right, if you are profiling black people based on hoodies, okay, you have a problem. And that's part of the problem with America today is that a lot of people, a lot of racist whites have us on their clock. We're on their meter. In other words, and their meter is slow in development. It's the meter of social development. You understand what I mean?
I understand.
And we're prisoners of that. All right. If I'm not used to seeing you, if I don't like seeing you wearing a hoodie, you can't go forward in life.
Right.
I'm going to stop you. I'm going to hinder you. Okay. And this has nothing to do with a person being criminal. It's what somebody's imagination perceives to be a criminal.
It's scary where perceptions, and especially with Africans that live here in America, that we've experienced this for so long, and that no matter how many gains we make, it still comes down to the basic issue that we are still subjected to preperceptions of who you are based on skin color, dress, sex, creed, color, or lifestyle is a form of an ism, be it racism, sexism, whatever ism you want to attach to it.
Right.
In this case, it's racism. And America refuses, absolutely is terrified at dealing with the issue of race. And it's been that way since we were brought here.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. It's like the taboo word to talk about. Why can't you deal with racism?
Now, Eric Holder raised that question, and he says that it's cowardice to avoid that. He charged a lot of people.
Yes.
He said, you know, you're being a coward when you avoid that.
You're being an absolute coward when you are afraid to confront your weaknesses. And one of your weaknesses is racism. And you use racism to remain in power, and racism is wrong. Right. There's only one race of people on earth, and that is the human race. Mm-hmm. We are separated and different by culture, geography, and land.
Right.
That is the biggest difference.
Yeah.
And that is the one issue. And the way you deal with that issue, and we have to ask ourselves, why won't you deal with it?